court still insists they're ongoing with their protest against the IBC. They've been barricaded from reaching the IBC towers, that's anniversary towers in town. But the latest update we have is that the court leaders have just left the Capitol Hill office, and they're heading into town. Our very own Brenda Wanga is with the entourage, and they're coming into town to continue the protest against the IBC. A lot of demos have been seen across the country. In Kibera, one person was shot, apparently succumbed to his injuries. 2 more people have also been shot in Siaya. That update coming in really fast. There's been a lot of back and forth and cat and mouse games between protesters and the police in Kibera, and of course in Kisumu as well, and in Mombasa also. 1 person was killed and 2 others seriously injured after an IBC demonstration in Kisumu turned ugly earlier on today. The middle-aged man is alleged to have taken a bullet on the head as the anti-riot police moved to disperse thousands of protesters who were marching towards the IBC offices in the town. Another demonstrator was injured on the head, while a woman is reported to have been shot on the leg as well. The 2 were rushed to Kisumu County Hospital, where they're currently receiving treatment. During this live broadcast, we'll be giving you live pictures from the anniversary towers, where the court principal still insists that they're heading there. As we speak, they're on Mwindimbingu Street heading that way, insisting that the protest is still ongoing. The same happened in Kakamega, where Senator Boni Halwale has been arrested in the ongoing protest against the IBC. I want to take you to Kakamega just so that you see what happened there earlier on today. Well, that is what was happening at Kakamega earlier on today. The Senator Boni Halwale was arrested. Now, this is the 4th time running. In fact, it's the 4th week running against this IBC protest by the Coalitions for Reforms and Democracy. Most of the time, they've made their way to the CBD and they've been dispersed violently. Since morning, our reporter Brenda Wanga was reporting that they were cordoned off from getting to the IBC offices, and the ongoings was pretty much stable throughout the time. Business was ongoing as usual, despite the place being semi-deserted. There were not very many protesters there because most of them were stopped, and some of them also stopped in Kibera, where Nimrod Tabu was reporting that there was a lot of violent cat and mouse games where the protesters were stopped from converging and making groups. However, in the past we've seen the police having to use a bit of force to disperse them. That the same thing happened today, but they were using tear gas canisters to make sure that the protesters do not gather. However, those who were passing by and had nothing to do with the protest were pretty much left without being caned like had been seen earlier on. I want to take you to Mombasa just to show you what happened there as well. It was still the demonstration against the IEBC. I want to show you footage of what took place in Mombasa. Take a look. Well, like we mentioned earlier, the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy Principles are still trying to make their way to the IEBC offices. That's in Anniversary Towers at about 3:45. They still insist that the protests are ongoing. They insist that they have to get there. However, the place has been cordoned off by police. There isn't much that was going on there in the morning because most of the protest was stopped from getting into the CBD. Most of the vehicles coming into the CBD were actually being inspected. Border riders were also very much restricted from getting to the CBD. This is a change of tack from what we saw earlier on, where the protesters have been holding protests along University Way, where the Anniversary Towers, which houses the IEBC offices, is located. And these protesters have been violently dispersed by throwing tear gas, of course, and some of them were also beaten, and most of them were also brutalized and causing an uproar mostly on social media, claiming that the police were using excessive force. That was also condemned by the human rights bodies. But today, most of the protesters have not made their way to the CBD. However, as we speak right now, the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy leaders are actually heading there as we speak. We'll be giving you the latest update because our very own reporter Brenda Wanga is with them, and we'll be getting there to see exactly what's going on, despite the fact that most of the protesters were stopped. In Kibera earlier on today, there was a lot of cat and mouse games. Any groups that were gathering were dispersed by the police using tear gas canisters. They eventually retaliated by pelting them with stones. There have been not much injuries there reported. Arrests have not also been made just yet. But the latest we know from Kisumu is that one person has died there. The person was one of the protesters in the IEBC, against the IEBC. The deceased had been rushed to Aga Khan Hospital with serious head injuries. Initially thought to be from a gunshot, while others were rushed to the county hospital as well. Doctors who attended to him, however, clarified the disease did not die of gunshot wounds. That is pretty much the conflicting information that we are getting. Some of them say that it was a gunshot wound, others say it was not. There's a report here claiming that the doctor, Sam Oula, says the injuries might have been caused as a result of a falling down and being walked over as protests ran for their safety. So the doctor from Kisumu there, Sam Oula, confirming that injury, the head injury that this person sustained, was mostly because of the stampede. The pictures you're seeing on your screen right now are earlier pictures in Kisumu where the protest happened. That is where I was just saying that one person has been confirmed dead. There's conflicting information whether that injury was from a gunshot wound or the person was ran over by a stampede, because the protesters were dispersed by police who were lobbing tear gas to them, and they retaliated using gunshots. In Siaya, 2 people have been confirmed dead as well, as this protest continue to get ugly by the day. This is the 4th time running, and the protests keep spreading through the country. This is insisting that IEBC must go. The ruling coalition says that they don't have a problem with that, but it has to be done in a constitutional way. The commissioners themselves insist that they will not vacate office unless it is done according to the constitution. The CORD coalition, on the other hand, insists that the constitutional means may not necessarily be fruitful because of the tyranny of numbers, claiming that they've tried that before, and the only way this could happen is by popular demand. COTU, Coalition for Reforms and Democracy, that is the opposition, the churches, most people have aired their grievances against the IEBC, saying that they may not be a fair arbiter in 2017 polls, meaning that they want the commissioners to leave. The commissioners, however, insist that by evicting them from office literally does not mean that they stop being the commissioners. The chairman, Isaka San, mentioned that even if he was evicted from office literally, he'd still go to Garissa and he would still be the chairman of the IEBC. He insists that he has done nothing wrong and insists that they are very capable of holding the 2017 elections. That is the one thing the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy does not agree with. The government, on the other hand, remains neutral on this, however, just insisting that they have to be evicted through the constitutional means. In Kibera earlier on today, the youth were trying to make their way to town. They were stopped. There were a lot of security presence in the area. Any gathering was dispersed by lobbing tear gas. And I want to take you to Kakamega as well, where the same has been happening. Boni Alwale, the senator there, being roughed up by police as the protests get violent. It is still the same theme. IEBC must go. In fact, you're seeing him at your screen right now. That was before he was arrested. He was meant to be presented in court today at 2 p.m. We are still trying to establish if that has happened and what exactly the charges were. More people have also been arrested in conjunction, in relation to this protest that started happening this morning at around 10 a.m. Here at the CBD, there wasn't much going on because they were stopped from getting close to the IEBC offices. And of course, police dispersed protesters waiting for ODM Deputy Party Leader Hassan Joe. That's at Uhuru Gardens in Mombasa earlier on today. But what you're seeing on your screen is from Kakamega. That is earlier footage. Boni Alwale being taken into the car, police car waiting there. He's been arrested after this protest turned violent. He was supposed to be presented in court. That has not happened earlier on. Yesterday, CORD said that they would be putting women at the front singing peace songs during the anti-IEBC protest, as Senator James Orengo claimed that Jubilee MPs hired goons to interrupt the activity. This is one of the things that has been going on. It's not been proven yet, but there were allegations that there'd be counter demonstrations organized by the Jubilee coalition, mostly involving the business people who say that this protest by CORD supporters continue interrupting their business every single day, and they lose hundreds of thousands of shillings that collectively runs into millions of shillings, and they were meant to also defend their right to conduct their businesses as usual. And that allegation that they were also going to organize their own counter protests against the IEBC protest just to ensure that business continues as usual. In Kisumu, one person died after sustaining head injuries. We mentioned earlier that there's conflicting information whether it was from a gunshot wound or whether he sustained those injuries during a stampede when they were dispersed by the police. And police called protesters for ODM. And in Mombasa, police dispersed CORD protesters waiting for ODM Deputy Party Leader and, of course, the Governor, Hassan Joho, at Uhuru Gardens. Mombasa also cordoned off the IEBC offices. There was also violent protest over there. And there was also the latest update that police shot 3 people in Kisumu. The footage you're seeing is from Kakamega right now. Well, that's the latest from Kakamega. Those are earlier on pictures that were being held, and this, what you're seeing on your screen, is Kisumu, where one person died earlier on today from wounds sustained to his head. There are conflicting information whether it was a gunshot wound or it was wounds sustained after stampede, where the protesters were dispersed by police. And I want to take you to Mombasa now, whereby in Mombasa, there was also demonstrations there when they arrived at the Uhuru Gardens earlier on morning and started chanting anti-IEBC slogans. They were dispersed using tear gas as well. Police had arrived in the morning and sealed off all the entrances to the recreational facility, which had been marked as the starting point for the demos. Several people were arrested, including Mombasa County Assembly Speaker Theodoras Rajwai and an MCA as well. Area Governor Hassan Joho, MPs Rashid Benzimba of Kisauni, Abdusamad Nasir of Vita, Badi Twalib of Jomvu, and Mombasa Women Representative Mishi Mboko arrived later on and urged police to let them demonstrate in peace. They later addressed the demonstrators, warning them against engaging in criminal activities during the exercise. They then marched along Moi Avenue and Kuma Road before arriving at the IBC Mvita constituency offices near Makadara grounds. Just listen in for what happened earlier on today. Well, that is what happened earlier on in Mombasa. Right here in the CBD, the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy leaders still made their way to the IBC headquarters. The latest information we have is that entourage has been dispersed using tear gas. Those who are nearby also getting a dose of the tear gas there. There wasn't many protesters because most of them were stopped from accessing the CBD. However, that entourage has now been dispersed. Our reporter Brenda Wanga is keeping a close eye on them and will be giving you the latest from that trail. However, there's no arrests so far. There were not very many people in the CBD as compared to Kibera, where the youth were also dispersed using tear gas, having tried to come into groups to make their way into the CBD. We'll be giving the latest on that. There's still a lot going on in the world right here, right now, in the protest against IEBC by the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy. And court leaders have moved from their offices at Capitol Hill to the Anniversary Towers headquarters, where the latest information we're getting is that they've been dispersed using tear gas. There weren't many protesters there because most of them were cordoned off from reaching the CBD and the University Way and the Anniversary Towers, where the IEBC offices are stationed. This is the fourth time running that protests are continuing. This time they've spread to other parts of the country. There was protests in Mombasa, there was protests in Kisumu, where one man is allegedly succumbed to his injuries. There's still conflicting information to whether that was a gunshot wound or it was a wound sustained from a stampede after the police dispersed the violent protesters in Kibera. There was also a lot of protests going on there. The youth were being stopped. The pictures you're seeing on your screen is what I've just mentioned. That was Kisumu protest earlier on today, where one person lost their lives after sustaining head injuries. And of course, the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy leaders were making their way to the University Towers. They've also been dispersed. Our reporter Brenda Wanga is keeping a close eye on that, and we'll be giving you the latest details in our subsequent bulletins. That's at 7 and at 9 of what transpired during the day, but you've pretty much seen a lot. I want to listen in to what's going on right now. That was earlier on in Kisumu. Well, those were the earlier pictures from 3 different places. That's in Kakamega, in Kisumu, in Mombasa, and in Kibera as well. The protests have been reported all over those places. In the Nairobi CBD, CORD leaders had moved from their Capitol Hill offices trying to make their way to Anniversary Towers, which houses the IEBC offices, but they were dispersed using tear gas. We're getting latest information there that they've gone back to their to their Capitol Hill offices from the Anniversary Towers, where the place was cordoned off by heavy security presence. This is a different approach intact by the police. The last 3 times the protesters have made their way to University Way. They were also dispersed using tear gas. Today, the protesters were stopped from even accessing the CBD itself, and business was ongoing as usual despite some shops being closed. And our reporter Brenda Wanga has been on the trail of the CORD leaders who tried to make their way to the Anniversary Towers, and she'll be joining us on phone in just a bit. But just to give you an update is that in Kisumu, 1 person has died, and Brenda, like I mentioned earlier on, our reporter Brenda Wanga is just joining me right now on phone. She's at the Anniversary Towers on the University Way. Brenda, what's going on right now?
Well, Trevor, we are, like we rightly said, at IBC headquarters here at the Anniversary Towers in Nairobi. It is calming down, lots of police presence around here, which has been the case from early morning, but with an increase in the number of police officers who've been deployed here in the last 1 hour or so. The reason being that it is during that hour that we had reports that CORD principal Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, and Moses Wetangula were making their way from Capitol Hill offices to come and picket here at the IEBC. They did indeed do that from around 3:30. They left their offices, made their way into town through, of course, accessing trying to access the IEBC offices through City Hall and Mwindi Mbingu Street, but they were not able to actually get to their intended destination, the IEBC, because while they were on their way here, the anti-riot police who had been camping here for the better part of the day lobbed tear gas into the procession and aptly dispersed them and tried as well to push their supporters as far away from the IEBC as possible, Trevor. So currently right now, the situation is calming down here at the IEBC. Still, no people who don't have any business here, according to the police, are not allowed to access the premises, Trevor.
Brenda, did any protesters manage to sneak their way to the University Way?
Not, Trevor. Like I mentioned earlier, this area has been cordoned off from early morning. There have been anti-riot police presence here. There have been lots of police vehicles, lorries. The water canyons also blocking parts of access to this place. And the protesters were met actually before they could make their way anywhere near the premises of the IEBC. So today, apart from that, 1 or 2 early protesters in the early morning around 11 a.m. No one has been able to access the IEBC today.
All right, thanks, Brenda. That's Brenda Wanga speaking to us from the Anniversary Towers, which houses the IEBC offices. Like she mentioned, the court leaders tried to make their way there from the Capitol Hill offices, but they were dispersed using tear gas. You could even feel it in her voice. She was still choking when she was speaking to me. She's making sure you get all the latest update from the protests. They've been protests all over in Mombasa, in Kakamega, right here in Nairobi, in Kibera's place, and in Kisumu as well. That is the latest coming from us. My name is Trevor Mbija. Always a pleasure having you with us. We'll be giving you the latest on the front line of the battle against IBC in our subsequent bulletins.